Hello, my name is Lilian Okibe. Welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be talking all about trimming locks. We'll be discussing whether it's a good idea for you to trim locks and how you can know, or like what you should look out for to know whether it's time for you to trim your locks. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then please keep on watching. Let's just start by talking about the advantages of trimming locks. Trimming doesn't really have the same effect when it comes to length retention with locks as it does with loose natural hair, because the thing about loose natural hair is trimming loose natural hair regularly helps to retain length, because when you trim your hair tangles less, and when your hair tangles less, it breaks less whenever you come in contact with it. But the thing is, with locks, it doesn't really work that way. Whether you trim your locks or not, it will not really affect whether your locks will retain length or not, because with locks you're not detangling your hair, especially except if you have like really micro locks. But even with that, like with locks, you're not really detangling your hair per se. So whether you trim or not, like it doesn't really affect whether you're going to retain length or not. However, there are other advantages that trimming your locks can have, and I feel like that's the reason why people still trim their hair even when they have locks. Now, the first advantage you're going to have when you trim your locks is obviously you're going to have more blunt looking ends, and that can be your preference. Like some people like having blunt ends as opposed to having like tapered ends. So if that's your thing, like when you trim your locks regularly, you're going to have blunt ends. And the good thing about that is that eventually leads us to our next advantage, which is that when you trim your locks regularly, your locks are going to appear fuller because your ends are more blunt. The third advantage, which is also as a result of blunt ends, is that when you have blunt ends, your locks look healthier, because there's just something about blunt sharp cuts that just gives this like healthy, rich look, you know. So when you trim your locks regularly, it's going to make your locks appear healthier. There are different reasons why your locks may start to have a tapered look, like why your ends may not look as thick as like the remaining length of your locks. There are three major reasons. The first reason is that you started your locks with damaged natural or like relaxed hair. So what that means is if at the time when you're installing your starter locks, if you start your locks on damaged natural hair, or if you start your locks on relaxed hair, you know, that will mean that your locks, like as your locks mature, your ends are going to be thinner than the rest of your locks, because your ends are damaged. And the thing about damaged hair is that it's generally thinner. If you started on relaxed hair, then obviously relaxed hair is generally less voluminous, and so that will eventually create thinner locks than as your new growth grows out, right? So many people, when they're about to start their locks, they first go ahead and get a trim, so that they know that they are going into the journey with like healthy hair that will eventually produce healthy locks, right? So if you start on damaged locks, that will show in the resulting lock, because the ends of your locks are going to show that you started with damaged hair, and it's going to be thinner and tapered. Now, another reason why your locks may be thinner or tapered at the end is that if your locks eventually get damaged along the line. So what that means is, it's possible that you started your locks on completely healthy loose natural hair. Let's say you just had a fresh trim before you started your locks. Over time, as your locks mature, most likely because of damage that comes from maybe color, that's like the most, because for most people, like their ends, if your hair, like if your loose natural hair wasn't like damaged, if your loose hair wasn't damaged as at the time you're starting your locks, the most likely thing is that your locks are going to be thicker at the end and eventually get slimmer as you move towards your roots, especially if you're someone that likes to retwist your locks often, right? But if you go ahead and color your hair, for example, because when you go ahead and color your hair, you tend to like damage, you know, the foundation of your locks. So that can actually start to make your locks disintegrate, and that can eventually make your locks taper and like look thin at the end. So that's another reason. If your locks got damaged along the line, then it's possible that your locks can become thinner at the ends. Another thing is, if by just doing bad hair practices, let's say wearing tight styles and like doing things, maybe braids and twists, or putting rubber bands on your ends, you know, that's another thing many people do not talk about, like all those styles where you have to put like rubber bands on your ends and stuff. Those styles can make your ends thinner, you know, and make your ends taper. So that's another reason that your locks may get thinner at the ends along the line, even though you started on like healthy loose hair. Now, the third reason why your locks may be thinner at the end is that it is just part of the locking process. The thing is that when you start locks, your hair goes through different stages, right? And your hair goes through different cycles, right? And that can mean that sometimes the like mid shaft of your locks may have fully matured, they may be fully locked, while the ends are just like catching up. You know, for some people, their lock starts to lock from the ends, while some people, it may not necessarily start from the ends. It may start somewhere in the middle, and then the ends will take some time before it catches up with the rest of the hair, and that can make the ends kind of like look slimmer and tapered. So how can you know whether the tapered ends is as a result of damage or if it's part of the locking process? Now, the first thing you want to look out for is, how was your hair, like what was the state of your hair when you started your locks? What was the state of your loose natural hair when you started your lock? If you just had a trim, or if you can vouch, you can be sure that you can see that yes, for sure my hair was completely healthy, then obviously that's out of it. You know that it's not as a result of damaged ends from loose natural hair. And if you've not actually been doing any of those things that can cause damage, you've not been putting rubber bands on your ends, you've not like colored your hair, you're like gentle and kind to your hair and all, and you can see that it is just slimmer, right? But it doesn't actually look damaged, because the thing about if your ends are tapered as a result of damage that happened while you're in the locking process is that you're going to see, apart from the fact that the ends look slimmer, you're going to see that it looks damaged. I don't know how to explain it, but you can tell that it's not strong, and like if you like pull it, it may just snap, you know. That can be a sign that can be a really telling sign that can tell you that that's as a result of damage, not as a result of the locking process. Now, when it comes to your ends being slim as a result of the locking process, what you notice is that the ends may not be as firm as, like, let me see if I can show you guys. Like if you look at this lock now, this is one of the examples of a lock that the end is thin, right, as a result of the locking process. I had one other lock somewhere, yeah, this lock started out like that too, but you guys can see now like the end is now blunt, right? Compare that to this, you guys can see that the lock looks fine, right, but down here it's kind of slimmer, and that's part of the locking process. Like it has been like this and it's slowly changing. Like a few months ago it was like more obvious than this, but like now I feel like it's slowly catching up with the rest of the hair. And it has been like that for a while. I was actually tempted to cut it a few months ago, but I just decided to let it go because I noticed that there was one other lock that was like that, but now it is blunt. I don't know if I can find it, but there was a lock that was like that, but now it has like, it's now blunt and stuff. So how you can know that it is part of your locking process, if you inspect all the locks in that area. If you notice that maybe you just have one lock, or you just have few locks scattered all over your hair that are just like that, it's not like all the locks in that area are like that, that's a sign that that's part of the locking process. That lock is just like taking like a different route to form the lock, right? The group of hair in that lock is just taking a different route to form the lock, unlike the rest, right? But if you can see that all the locks in that particular area look like that, that's a sign that it's probably as a result of damaged hair from when you had loose natural hair. Now, if it is just one lock and you can see that it is not like it's thinner, you can see that it is thinner and it's also damaged, then that's a sign that that's a result of something that you have done within your lock journey. And yeah, and I feel like the only time that you should cut your locks, like you should cut the ends of your locks when they are thinner, is if it is as a result of damage. Maybe you started on damaged hair when you had loose natural hair, or if you started if somewhere along the line your locks got damaged, then I feel like I feel like personally I feel like that's the only time when you should cut your locks. Because if it's the other reason of that is the locking process, then you have nothing to worry about, because over time it's going to even out, it will blunt out and like just bulk up on its own, even without you doing anything. Although I know that it can be tempting to cut it, because like this particular lock down here, it has been annoying me, and I've been wanting to cut it for the longest time. So I understand how it may be like bothering you and stuff, but just let it be. It's going to behave itself after a while. So just try to get your mind off it. But if you must, if you have to cut it, you can go ahead and cut it. It's not like it's going to damage your locks in any way. But I feel like that's just wasted hair. Like, you're just wasting your hair. Like, that hair will eventually form nicely later on. So I feel like the only time you should cut your locks is if it is damaged, right? If it is still part of the locking process, I feel like you should just give it some time. Personally, I think that before you go ahead and cut your locks, if it's as a result of the locking process, before you go ahead and like zero in and, oh, this lock is not going to, this end is not going to bulk up ever again, I feel like you should just wait till you hit like 2 years. Even whether you choose to cut, even if it's damaged hair, whether you choose to cut it or not, it's not really affect your length retention, but it's just more of the aesthetics and like how you want your locks to look. Do you want them to have like blunt ends or tapered ends? So it's more like that. But whether you cut it or not, it's not going to affect your length retention. With that, we come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if this is your first time on my channel and you like to see more videos from me and how my locks progress, then definitely subscribe. I'm going to make a lock update at the end of this month, because at the end of this month I'll be 15 months locked. Yeah, I'll be 15 months locked, and I actually wanted to wait till I hit 2 years before I do a lock update, but I feel like 2 years is too long from now, and one of you asked for a lock update, so I'm going to make a lock update when I hit 15 months at the end of this month. So watch out for that video. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in my next video.